Good afternoon, Chief Rabbi Goldstein. How are you?
Yeah, great, Rabbi Golko. So lovely to be with you and all of the wonderful people at St. John's Wood. I have such fond memories of spending Shabbat in your community. Must have been 13, 14 years ago, soon after I started as Chief Rabbi, more than 15 and a half years ago. And very early on, I came for a visit to the community. And of course, I just want to acknowledge the incredible work and leadership of my dear friend, Diane Binstock, and the service that he has given to the shul and on the Beis Din. And Rabbi Golko, well done on all of your outstanding work. Been hearing wonderful things. So thank you so much. Such a pleasure to be with you.
Thank you so much. It's a big honor for us. As I mentioned, I'm running a series called Around the Jewish World in 613 Seconds, where I'm meeting various Jews from all walks of life around the Jewish world. And it's a big privilege for me to be able to meet the Chief Rabbi of South Africa, which is 4,282 miles away from the Western Wall in Jerusalem. But I want to hear a little bit about what's Jewish life like in South Africa.
Okay, so I think we'll take it as pre-pandemic, okay, because obviously pandemic has turned the whole world upside down.
Absolutely.
So pre-pandemic, in a normal world, before the whole world was turned on its head, the South African Jewish community has a very vibrant Jewish life. We've got 85% plus of our children are in Jewish day schools. We have a vibrant network of synagogues that stretches across the country, particularly obviously in the two main centers of Johannesburg and Cape Town. Jewish life is very vibrant. There's a recent survey that was just conducted actually by one of the Institute think tanks from London in partnership with the University of Cape Town, and they came out with some remarkable findings about the level of Jewish identity and Jewish pride and Jewish life in South Africa, which was so heartwarming. And also it's a great blessing is that South Africa is a free democracy with a Bill of Rights and a constitution, with a very vibrant, robust democracy, with regular elections, real space for the Jewish community to express its Jewishness in an unhindered way. And in fact, Baruch Hashem, thank God, relatively speaking, by international standards, low levels of anti-Semitism, relatively speaking, and so that's something that we are very grateful for. Of course, there are the debates that happen in the country around Israel and our community, and it's something that I've taken very seriously myself in my own capacity as Chief Rabbi, to defend Israel at every possible opportunity in the interests of justice, fairness, and truth. But it is the wonderful shiurim that take place, and yeshivas and kollalim, and very vibrant Jewish life, thank God, and a very vibrant and diverse array of all of the kosher goods and restaurants and bakeries.
I spent a summer in South Africa in 2008 with Eish HaTorah. I was running one of the fellowships over there. We had the most amazing summer. I must admit, one of the highlights was Avron's place in Cape Town and Nando's, I believe, in Johannesburg. Food in South Africa has got a great reputation. But beyond the food, in terms of the education, you spoke about some of the amazing yeshiva and institutions. It's really quite inspiring to know that there's an amazing Jewish center all the way in the Southern Hemisphere in South Africa. What's the future for South African Jewry looking like? I know a lot of people have emigrated to Israel, which is obviously a great thing for Zionism, but in terms of the demographic, how would you anticipate the community to look like in 10, 20, 30 years from now?
This is the interesting thing that came out of the survey. Look, the numbers of the number of in the community, the number of Jews is subject of some debate and discussion, as it is in any Jewish community. Personally, I think it's roughly around 60,000, although I don't have any scientific evidence to say one or the other. But what came out very interestingly from the survey is the demographics. It found that overall, in terms of the average age of the community is very similar to, say, the Jewish community in Australia or some other comparative English-speaking diaspora community, and that I think was very encouraging, particularly Johannesburg, Johannesburg even younger than Cape Town, So I think that bodes very well for the future. I think, you know, the world, and particularly now the whole world has, you know, been turned on its head. But in a certain sense, when you have a Jewish community, a vibrant Jewish community in a free democracy, that is going to come with enormous blessing. It also comes with enormous challenge. I think, you know, the Jewish community of South Africa lives in a country like any other country, and it has many blessings, it has many challenges, it has many difficulties, many problems, but you know, amazing things which are making so much wonderful progress in South Africa. So I see it in a certain sense of any Jewish community, any diaspora Jewish community looking ahead to the future. You're going to see on the horizon challenges and opportunities, problems and progress. There's going to be that mixture, and I think life is made up of all that gray and that mixture. And it's part of our mission, not only to look towards to predict the future, but to create the kind of future that we want. Prediction is always very passive. Creation is when you look proactively to see what is the future that I want and how can I go and create it. And that's the message that I give to my Jewish community in South Africa, saying, what is the future that we would like? And let's go about and create it together.
That's the catchphrase on your website. The Torah, speaking the language of tomorrow, right? That's your catchphrase.
Exactly.
It's a beautiful line. And I enjoy very much listening to your weekly Divrei Torah on your website. If I could just ask you a little bit more, you know, unfortunately, we're seeing world events unfold around us in the United States, particularly with what's taking place there with racism. And you being the chief rabbi of a country that's lived through apartheid, that knows firsthand the dangers of racism. I remember when I was in South Africa, you know, I had an experience where I went for a walk late at night and my host came and drove by and got me in the car. I said, no, you shouldn't be walking the streets late at night. It's not safe. In terms of racism and in terms of security, if you could just tell us a little bit about what's that like now, all those years later after apartheid in South Africa.
Well, I think that firstly, the rejection of any form of racism is a central Torah value. And I think that's important to remember. You know, the Mishnah says, Chaviva Adam Shenivra B'Tselem. Beloved is the human being created in God's image. There's the famous Mishnah in Sanhedrin where it says that when God created the world, when he created human beings, he created us all from one common father and one common mother ancestor, Adam and Eve, as opposed to the other species that were created en masse. Human beings all came from a single male and female ancestor. And the Mishnah says, as you know, that God did that. One of the reasons God did that, says the Mishnah, according to our oral Torah, God did that in order to eradicate racism, so that no one nation or race would be able to say, my ancestors were racially superior to yours, because indeed every human being is descended from one common father and one common mother, which makes us all brothers and sisters. So the eradication of racism goes to the dawn of creation. It goes to the heart of what Torah values are about, that the greatness of the human being is being created in God's image. And that's why I think it is so important as Jews, and it's a point that I make in the context of South Africa, where the debates around race are complicated. Even after the years of apartheid, it is issues and debates around race, you know, are debated all the time in the society. Not in a sense of you know, it's taken as assumed and as part of the values and the ethos of South Africa, the rejection of racism. But what is the meaning of it? What is the meaning of history? What is the meaning of a history of suffering and persecution? And that's why there's so many interesting and meaningful and powerful intersections between in a sense, from Jewish history and a deep understanding of what racism is about. But I think what is so important for us as Jews is we need to be at the forefront of rejecting any form of racism and ensuring that our voices are heard in favor of the equality and dignity of every human being, that God forbid a racist word or thought should come, you know, from our community, of any human being. But we have a Torah that taught us long before it was politically correct. The Torah taught us thousands of years ago the evils of racism. So we have to be at the forefront of that. And that's something that as Chief Rabbi of South Africa, I'm constantly working at, to be that voice in our society and to contribute to that debate and to encourage the members of my community and indeed Jews everywhere that we need to see the glory of the human being created in God's image.
You know, as a young aspiring rabbi, looking up to someone like yourself, I feel like I can learn so much from you. I have learned so much from you. I'm curious for you to tell me what you think is the role of a rabbi in the 21st century. Very briefly, in a sentence or two, how would you articulate the role of a rabbi?
Wow, in a sentence or two, I would say this. In essence, being a rabbi is about being a leader, but we have to understand the concept of leadership, because there is a perception, which is that leadership is top down, but the truth is every single one of us is a leader. You know, whether we occupy an official position as a rabbi or not, every single one of us is a leader, and being a leader is about assuming responsibility. But leadership is, and this is the essence, I think, of being a great rabbi and being a great leader, and indeed for every single one of us, because we all occupy leadership positions in our families, in our communities, in our workplaces. We are influencing the people around us. Leadership is, I think the Torah model of leadership is what I would call from the inside out. In other words, we start by leading ourselves. To be a great rabbi, you have to be a great human being. You have to be a great Jew. You start with yourself. We have to work on our character, on humility and compassion and generosity of spirit and wisdom and depth and sensitivity and refinement and self-control. All of those things are part of what make up good character. When we also need to be immersed in Torah learning and Torah wisdom, and so that the thinking of Hashem and the thinking of our sages throughout the generations permeates who we are and makes up. There's a beautiful phrase that Paul Johnson writes about. We said that the Jews gave the world what he calls the basic furniture, the moral furniture of the human mind, because furniture creates an atmosphere in a home, and so we need to make sure the furniture of our mind is made up of the Torah values and ideas and concepts, like the Mishnah in Pirkei Avot says, "Yehi beischa beis vad lechachamim," let your home be a meeting place for the sages. And the Barvanel says, what does it mean, your home? It says your mind. So to be a great rabbi, we need to start on the inside. And any great leader, and I say this to all of the people who are listening to you and I in this conversation, and who are congregants of your congregation, say to each and every single, we're all leaders, and that means from the inside out. Work on character, midot, refinement, menschlichkeit, decency, wisdom, Torah learning. And from there, we start to share that with the people around us in ever expanding circles of influence. But we cannot hope to change the world or make the world into a better place until we change ourselves. It starts from the inside out, and we need to develop like that and to then shed the light further and further afield, as the Mishnah in Pirkei Avos says, Im ein ani li mi li, if I don't do it for myself, in other words, I don't take personal responsibility, who will do it? But then ukashani la'atzmi, Mani, if I'm only looking after myself, which this foreigner says, if I'm only having the wisdom for myself and I'm not sharing it with the people around me, then what am I? And as the Rambam says, the mitzvah of learning Torah is lilmod ulamed, to learn and to teach. And every Jew has that responsibility. It's not just rabbis. Leadership is for each and every single one of us.
It wasn't two sentences, but it was magnificent. And thank you very much. Chief Rabbi, you're talking of leadership. I'm sure through your illustrious career, you've met lots of great leaders and world leaders and statesmen. Is there anyone who stands out to you as an amazing person to have met, any great world leader? It doesn't necessarily need to be a Jewish leader, but is there anyone that you've met through your time as Chief Rabbi that stands out to you?
Yes. One abiding memory of mine, which influences me and my understanding of what leadership is, comes from when I met Nelson Mandela. And as everybody knows, he was in jail for 27 years imprisoned by the apartheid authorities, and he came out with this tremendous generosity of spirit and forgiveness. I spoke at his funeral, and I said there that he reminds me of the biblical Joseph, who was able to forgive his brothers after everything that they had done to him, and how the Mesilat Yesharim says that is the ultimate of being an angel, to have this angelic power. But in an interaction with him, when I met him just as I was starting as Chief Rabbi, this was about actually 16 years ago. And I went to go meet him at his home in Houghton in Johannesburg. And I brought with me, it was my first formal meeting. I'd bumped him into him in various, events and that, but proper formal sit-down meeting. He'd already retired as president. And I went to the meeting and I took with a copy of his autobiography, The Long Walk to Freedom, but they had done a children's version of it where they'd rewritten it for children. And my eldest son, Mordechai, he had a copy of the book. I'd bought a copy for him, and I took the children's copy to Mandela and into the meeting. And I said to him, this is for my son, Mordi, as we call him. And I said, would the president be comfortable to autograph it and sign the book? So he wrote the following inscription, which left an abiding impression upon me. He said, "To Mordi, a future great leader of the world." Now, that was the inscription. We've got the book. Of course, my wife agreed completely, not to mention my mother. So his mother and his Baba completely agreed with that. But what I realized from that is that Nelson Mandela saw greatness in people around him. And to be a truly great leader, you have to see the greatness and the potential of the people around you, believe in their awesome greatness, realize that they have this incredible power within them to do wonderful things. And if you have faith in people, you'll bring out the best in people. That's what our sages say, in Pirkei Avot, have it done it, kol adam nechavskut, judge people favorably. That means not just a question of judging, it's a question of seeing the good. We all have our weaknesses, but we also have our greatness. And when we see the good in people and we encourage the good in people, then that causes them to flourish. And it's what the Pasuk says, that Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses, our teacher, it says, Anav Mikol Adam, was the most humble of all people. One of the Meforshim says he was the most humble from all people, Mikol Adam, meaning he was humbled by people. He was humbled by the greatness that he saw in the people around him. And that is the key, I believe, to great leadership. You have to believe and see the greatness of the people around you. Then they will flourish and they will live up to the greatness that you see in them.
Rabbi Goldstein, your project, the Shabbos Project, is one of the most innovative and exciting projects that has taken place in the modern Jewish age. I must tell you, I remember when it was launched, the excitement that was going on around the world. If I could just show my listeners a very brief video summarizing your achievements of the Shabbat Project. Would that be okay?
Certainly.
Ladies and gentlemen, please watch this short video clip.
Over the years, Jews around the world have drifted away from their heritage and from each other. We even define ourselves by what divides us. So we asked, what could bring us back together? Shabbat is a day when we stop all creative activity from sundown to stars out. It's one day in the week to disconnect from our busy lives and reconnect with one another. Warren Goldstein, Chief Rabbi of South Africa, asked, what if we could get an entire community to keep one complete Shabbat together? We started at home in South Africa. The community took on the challenge to experience one Shabbat in full, most for the very first time, which brought us together like never before.
What a treat to be here, I can't believe it.
Soon, Jews around the world wanted in on it, and so the Shabbos Project was born. One Shabbat kept together all over the world. A social movement sprung up overnight. Thousands of volunteers worked around the clock. Awareness spread, and we helped people organize their own Shabbat Project experience.
There was a mass movement. It was a people's experience. This was the Jewish Spring, where the whole campaign went viral and that people owned it. It took on a life of its own.
Communities prepared for the annual event, and we guided them with the ins and outs of keeping Shabbat. Communal challah bakes rolled out across the world, bringing Jews together to prepare traditional Shabbat bread. And Havdalah concerts were set up to mark the end of Shabbat. The response has been amazing.
People heard about it, they came in their droves.
Y fue una actividad en familia.
There was a very special spirit around.
Something I hadn't felt in a long time.
Today, the Shabbat Project is driven by thousands of volunteers in hundreds of countries and thousands of cities in 10 languages. We entered the Guinness Book of World Records.
with the final measurement 20 feet.
Our biggest ever challah united 8,000 women in Buenos Aires. We shut down 5 city blocks on Pico Boulevard for a Shabbat dinner. Our Havdalah concert became the biggest standalone Jewish event in Melbourne's history. The project has clocked up millions of online media impressions. We captured the world's imagination.
The Shabbat Project.
Keeping it together.
ביחד שבת בינלאומית.
All right, imagine 4,000 women connected through religion and baking.
One Shabbos.
And we keep on growing. Our social movement has grown into a global social phenomenon. Divided communities have been reunited and Jewish pride has been restored.
There's a world before the Shabbos Project and after the Shabbos Project, and it's not the same world.
Most importantly, an estimated 1 million Jews around the world came together to reconnect through the magic of Shabbat. And this year, we're doing it again. Join in by keeping this Shabbat with Jews all over the world. We would also love you to partner with us to get your entire community keeping it together.
Rabbi Goldstein, having watched that clip, it's clear the Shabbos Project is a hugely impressive success. When you look back at the Shabbos Project, what stands out to you as the defining key to what made it such a success?
Yes, I would say this. There were certain key values at the heart of the Shabbos Project and are at the heart of the Shabbos Project, which is why it has spread, so far and wide across the world. Number one is the magic and the beauty of Shabbos. When you're coming to people and saying, here's this incredible gift, and Shabbos has the most incredible gift to offer the Jewish world. And the remarkable thing is, the gift and the beauty of Shabbos comes from keeping it properly. When we talk about, and to me this was a key part of the project, talking about the authenticity of a real Shabbos experience, not just acknowledging or celebrating Shabbos, but actually immersing yourself in it, switching off phones, not driving in cars, not doing any work, really keeping it to the fullest extent possible. That is the immersive experience, and that is so magical, and the world is so thirsty. We live in a world of dislocation and fragmentation and distraction and a world of pressure, and Shabbos comes with its force of unity and beauty, and it holds our lives together. So at the heart, the magic of the Shabbos Project is that there's a natural thirst in the world for the magic of Shabbos. And there's a deep thirst in the Jewish world for true Jewish unity. And I think the Shabbos Project gave people that access to true Jewish unity, where we come together around Shabbos. Doesn't matter what our backgrounds are, whether we're observant or not, or what hashkafa we come from, whether it is Haredi, modern Orthodox, Chabad, Hasidic, wherever we're coming from, whether a person is affiliated or unaffiliated, religious or not religious, there is a sense that we are all Jews. And when we rally around our sacred divine values, then those differences melt away and we become unified as one. And Shabbat has that unifying force. So I would say to you, what made the Shabbat Project over these years, obviously Hashem's blessings, but it is the magic of Shabbos, the greatest gift in the world that anyone could ever experience. It's the magic of Jewish unity. And the final thing is this: it is the magic of a people's movement, of the concept of leadership, which is not top down, but inside out, encouraging every Jew in the world to become a leader and to participate and to be a partner in the Shabbos Project. The Shabbos Project has been what it is, not because there's this, it is because not the sense of this top-down instructions from head office, but it's saying Shabbos belongs to every Jew. Come, I've said to people, come, become my partners. Let's work on this together. And let's create this. And people have responded because they want to be part of it. And they have that sense of personal leadership where everyone's a leader. It's a movement of the people.
Chief Rabbi Goldstein, this has been a privilege and an honor. I look forward to celebrating with you Shabbat in Jerusalem with the rebuilding of the temple soon. But until then, please stay healthy and well. And thank you very much for this opportunity. Thank you so much. God bless to you and to the whole shul and to everybody. And only please God, health and healing for your community, for my community, for Am Yisrael, for our world, for every single human being, the health and healing of Hashem speedily. Amen. Thank you very much.